Sally replies, God loves it when you wrestle him, Nathan. Wrestling is a full contact sport, and God loves it when you're in contact with him.
Welcome to Book Therapy. I'm your host, Kim Patton. There's no way to count how many books are floating around in this world. Some are decent, some are truly terrible, and some are great. Today we're going to take a deep dive into one great book. Together we will discover gems of truth and encouragement to help you face your current season of life. I'm ready, you're ready, let's get this party started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Book Therapy. Today we have another great book, but before we get to that, I just wanted to invite you to check out my website, kimpatton.com. I have a brand new PDF just for you. It's called How Are You Doing, Mama? A Quick Check-in for Foster and Adoptive Families. This is something that we created to help you stop, take a moment, assess where you are emotionally, spiritually, and then we have some prayers on there that will encourage you as you pray for yourself and your family. My favorite question in this resource is when we ask you, who can you ask to pray for you this week? The book that we're talking about today is really important for families dealing with special needs. And I know that road can be very lonely. So download the PDF and ask yourself, who can you ask to pray for you this week? And I think that is going to encourage you to reach out, ask for help, and feel supported in your journey. Okay, on with the show.
Let's dive into the book. Today we are talking about Different, the story of an outside-the-box kid and the mom who loved him, by Sally Clarkson and Nathan Clarkson. Sally Clarkson is the beloved author of numerous books. She is a mother of 4, and she has inspired thousands of women through Whole Heart Ministries, which she founded with her husband Clay in 1998. Nathan Clarkson is a writer, actor, and artist who attended the New York Film Academy. He wrote, produced, and starred in the movie Confessions of a Prodigal Son, and I believe he has a new movie out which he stars in with his wife. I picked up this book last year because I adore Sally Clarkson. I believe she's a role model for so many people, and I have enjoyed reading her emails and listening to her podcast and reading her books. The way she raised her children is admirable. It's not something that I could see myself doing. She was a homeschool mom, and also she traveled a lot and was involved in full-time ministry with her husband, and she's been a speaker for a long time as well. So her life is really, really busy, but I've gleaned a lot from her teaching, and I believe that she is a gift as a role model for how we can love our family well. I wanted to learn about Nathan. This book is obviously about him being a different kind of kid. And of course, he has his labels, his diagnoses. I wanted to learn about the mother-child relationship and how you can persevere through the difficult times and really see your child for who God created them to be. Sally says on page 197, I struggle most days with wanting to get a better handle on our lives, and I would love to have just 1 year that was free of conflict and trouble, or maybe just a month, or perhaps a week. Even after many years of being stretched and leaning into God to gain insight, I still find I am deeply flawed, and I still find myself surprised at ways that I offend Nathan's sensibilities. Even as an adult, he is still somewhat of a mystery to me. These days, however, I seek to understand more than to judge. Nathan has given me this gift. My whole, imperfect, exasperating family has given me this gift. The book really is about how Sally has embraced the family that God has given her and embraced the challenges that God has given her. Speaking of challenges, the first thing we're going to talk about is the challenge of a different person. This book is about a mother and a son, but I know that we can relate it to anyone in our life who's a challenging person, whether it's a child that we work with, a child that we are fostering or adopting, or a biological child, or as a teacher, there are children in your classroom who are just going to be different than everyone else. She says on page 8, Nathan's differences stretched me and challenged my own limits of wanting to fit in, to not bring more criticism and judgment, and my deep desire to have life be controllable. By loving him through the peaks and valleys of his own life journey in our home, I learned even more the meaning of the preciousness and the value of each human being who is crafted mysteriously by the hands of God. I learned to appreciate and celebrate difference, not just cope with it. Nathan struggles in his early years, and it takes a while for this family to figure out how he ticks, what is going on in his little mind and his little body. She gives an example of when Nathan needed to be prayed for at night. She says, "This little blueberry-eyed, freckle-faced, giggling ball of constant energy pushed me to the limit all day long and all night long. Nathan did not sleep through the night until he was 4, and even then he could not go to sleep without the repetitive assurance of my praying for him, even if I had prayed 5 minutes before and 5 times after that." Nathan would come get her in bed and ask her to pray over him again. She would get up, quietly come to his bed, hold his little hand, look into his eyes, and say, "God bless my Nathan and help him to have a peaceful sleep. Good night, my Nathan bug. Mama loves you. And now you can go to sleep because we have tied all the minutes of the day together and you can leave them in God's hands." I have no idea how she did this. No idea. But she did. She was faithful to meet her son where he was. And there were challenges because Nathan continued to be exhausting and he continued to have tantrums. Of course, everyone gave her advice. You need to discipline more. You're raising a spoiled little boy. If you take away all his sugar, he'll be just fine. But Sally paid attention to who Nathan was. And she said she observed some things about Nathan that helped her, that he responded better if she stayed right by his side and gave him time and attention. Nathan weighs in near the middle of the book when he talks about, as an adult, how he struggled with God. He called his mom. It says on page 99, "I told her I was mad at God, that it felt like he wasn't holding up his end of the deal." Nathan had been facing rejection after rejection in his auditions as an actor. He was having trouble in his relationships, and he was having trouble finding a job. Sally replies, "God loves it when you wrestle him, Nathan. Wrestling is a full contact sport, and God loves it when you're in contact with him." It's really cool throughout the book to see the perspective of the son and the mother, because Nathan was challenged just as much as his mom was. He was frustrated with his insecurities. He would be diagnosed with OCD and ADHD, anxiety, and there were some things that he just couldn't handle, and he wanted to be able to overcome them, but it was so difficult for him. One of the things about having a difficult child is working up the courage to enter into their mind, their body, and just be a part of what their struggles are for them. It's so easy when you're caring for someone else to just be demanding and, like Sally says, want to control things. But what if you stepped inside their world for a minute and really thought about how they feel? Sally says on page 122, "The process of living with a child who creates conflict daily and often affects the family atmosphere is challenging to each person in the family. We had to give our other children opportunities to express their irritation, to verbalize their frustration, and to feel that we understood their struggle. We never pretended that Nathan was not hard to live with. It took many years of personal growth for Clay and me to learn patience, to extend sympathy, to choose love and appreciation for differences. We had to extend the same grace and understanding for our other children as they grew from frustration to patience and understanding for Nathan's issues." Sally gives more insight of special needs children. She says, "In the case of special needs or outside-the-box children, we are required to become even wiser in our interacting and discipline. Intuition and years of experience taught me that Nathan was not always trying to be loud, misbehave in crowds, or walk outside the boundaries when the other kids were walking in bounds. His capacity to conform to expectations was much more limited than that of my other children." She does admit, "I do want to stress that I learned all this over the years, and at no time did I manage it perfectly. No parent does. Did I ever yell at Nathan, lose my patience, answer him sharply, get frustrated? More times than I ever want to remember. Many times my words were too harsh, my temper too short. Yet I had to learn to forgive myself as God forgave me over and over again." This brings me back to one of the points that Donna Amadon made when we were talking about tracing his promise in a previous podcast episode. She spoke to my heart when she said that Christ did it all. He died, he did it all. There is nothing more for him to do. And when we struggle to accept the grace that God has given us, we are essentially saying that Christ was not enough. And nobody wants to admit that's what they're saying. But Corey Asbury says in his song, I thought Amazing Grace was for someone else. I didn't know that Amazing Grace was for me. Yeah, Amazing Grace is for us. Sally Clarkson learned that Amazing Grace was for her. So we learn to accept God's forgiveness. We learn to forgive ourselves at the same time as we're teaching our kids, those we care for, to accept God's grace and forgiveness and love. Because sometimes we just feel like we're past it, like we don't deserve it. And that's just not true. The second thing we're going to talk about is the mystery of a different child. She says in the very beginning, all of us are a little bit quirky. Some of us are a lot a bit quirky. I'm not naming names. Sally does mention that they decided not to medicate Nathan for ADHD when he was young. But as he went through the elementary years and got a little bit older, they did decide to start trying medication. She says, giving my kids freedom and grace to become their full selves was a precious value to me as a mom, and seeing the results in their adult lives has been highly gratifying. Throughout the book, they both talk about how acting, performing, and art was really, really important for Nathan. In fact, throughout the book, there are sketches that Nathan does to kind of illustrate what he was feeling as a child and as an adult, living with these challenges. Sally talks about reading books and just the sense of Nathan needing a hero to look up to and to become and to feel that he himself was a hero in his own story. One of my favorite stories in the book comes near the end when Nathan has like a competition, and he enters into this competition and he does really well, and his mom is there and she's so proud of him. I can't imagine what that would feel like to see your child who has struggled for years and years and years and years to overcome challenges and to come out on top. On page 171, Sally says that she took Nathan to the doctor, and he was 15 years old, and there's a 30-minute test, and the counselor announced, Nathan, you fit the exact marks for obsessive-compulsive disorder, and according to this test, you are one of the most OCD kids I have seen in my practice. I think I can give you some answers, what to be aware of, how to find help, and you know what? Most clinically diagnosed OCD kids are very artistic and often very bright. They talked about how thrilling it was to have a diagnosis and to have a reason and an explanation for the struggles they'd both been going through for years. Nathan felt more understood. He could receive treatment and medication that would help with his agitation. One of the difficult parts for him as a person with OCD is cleanliness and feeling like things are dirty. There was a water leak in the house, and his suitcase got wet, and he just had this urge to wash all of his clothes, and he didn't have time, and his mom knew he didn't have time, and so she had to meet him where he was in his distress and his agitation at wanting to wash his clothes and not being able to. It was hard to read that story because you really felt for him, because he didn't want it. He didn't ask for it. He didn't ask to feel that way. Nathan says on page 184, this is so silly, I told myself. Nothing's dirty. Just get up like a normal person, grab your bags, and hug your family goodbye. But the thought of touching the people I loved and possibly contaminating them put knots in my stomach. What would all my new friends think of me, a 22-year-old man crying over water? As I thought of where I was and what I was doing for the first time in a long time, I hated myself. I hated the fact that I was different. I hated the fact that I, a 6'3", 200-pound man, had been brought to tears by an overflowing toilet. He talks about the pain when he feels the separation between him and the rest of the world. And though he never really got an explanation, he did find himself growing closer to God throughout his challenges. Lastly, we're going to talk about the adventure to be found. Throughout this whole book, I felt like the main point that God was speaking to me was that we love our kids for who they are. My job is to take care of the kids that God has given me, whether it's in my own home, in a foster home. I am not here to change them. I'm not. And if I live with that attitude, then we're all going to be frustrated. Sally prayed. After praying one day, Sally felt God whispering to her heart, this is not a sprint, this is a long-distance marathon. You cannot figure it all out, but you can love him. I trusted you with him because I believed you would choose to do this. I hoped you would see inside his heart to draw out his dreams, to see what he felt. I hoped you would try to understand how his brain works. Tending Nathan faithfully when no one sees is a way you worship and honor me. If you accept this child as a gift from me, I will use him as a blessing in your life. I see this as an example when, let's say, she's talking with a group of moms and all of the people are trying to give her advice and trying to help her through navigating Nathan and all his difficulties. At the end of the day, she is an advocate for Nathan. So the other moms may really be trying to help. They are offering advice and wisdom that they think might make things easier. But Sally knows her child the best, and she knows that she can't try to change him. I think about this with my own children and the teens we care for. I want to be there for them. I don't want them to meet my needs. I want to be an advocate and a champion for who God made them to be. Because you form that great relationship with them, you are going to enjoy some of the best moments because you're their safe space. So they're going to come to you and be their most joyful with you. And that will be your reward for pouring into the relationship. Nathan talks about the beginning of his fascination with stories of truth and bravery, stories of heroes who, like me, had their own battles to fight. And the hero story arcs were so ingrained in my head, they worked their way into my soul. I began to see myself as a hero too, embarking on my own tale of courage and possibilities. He says this was only possible because of my mother's creativity and persistence. Fully aware of my limitations, she invited me into the stories in a way she knew I could respond to. Sometimes there were piles of Legos to play with, a box full of army figurines to act out a story, a snack to munch, a puzzle to put together. From that time on, I always had something to occupy my hands, and that helped my mind to engage. Mom could have tried to force me to sit still, creating more tension between us and teaching me very little. She could have also gotten mad and given up altogether, depriving us of a closer relationship and me of the stories I needed to inspire and encourage me. She met me where I was, and with a simple pad of paper and a collection of pencils, she made it possible for me to do what I needed to do. This delights my soul because Sally took the time to figure out how to help her son. She gave him an opportunity to learn just like everybody else, and she saw his need. He needed to keep his hands busy so that he could pay attention. How many kids in our life would do a whole lot better sitting still and paying attention if they had something to keep their hands busy while they listened? She also talks about giving Nathan props and things to play with so that he could go out and act out the stories outside. She wanted him to have plenty of outside time, plenty of imagination time where he could dress up and use all kinds of tools to help him act out those hero stories. She also would use a timer. She says, work and clean your room for 15 minutes and then you can go outside. Read for 15 minutes and try to focus. When the timer goes off, you can tell me what you know, then you can have a snack and listen to one of your stories on tape. On page 82, Nathan shares this beautiful story of how on a summer night they decided to be adventurous. Nathan and his family would bring out the blankets and the pillows and spend the night on the porch listening to the sound of wind in the pine trees and watching the stars. He says, when I was growing up with my bundle of problems, I desperately needed times like the night I spent on my deck looking at the stars. To me, they were a reminder that even though my struggles felt big and unbeatable, I followed a God who was infinitely bigger and more powerful than any of them. I don't know if I'm brave enough at this point in time to sleep outside, camping on the deck with my family, but it might be a goal. We can maybe get there in a couple of years. We have a deck. It's a little cold right now, but how cool would that be to have a little sleepover outside, enjoying God's creation in the free and open air? Sally says on page 127 that Clay, her husband, took Nathan to national conferences where big stage illusionists performed and showed youth how to present the gospel through juggling and sleight of hand tricks. For a while, Nathan and a friend performed birthday party magic shows where they presented the gospel at the end, and as he grew older, we occasionally had him speak at conferences and marveled at the ease with which he addressed large audiences. No wonder he eventually decided to become an actor and then a filmmaker. To end the book, Sally says, I am so proud of what Nathan has achieved in his life and what I believe he will continue to achieve. I can't wait to hear the stories he will tell, to see the light he will bring to a world and an industry often shrouded in darkness. I know his passion, his perseverance. I am absolutely convinced that whatever crazy twists and turns his life takes, he will find a way to tell stories that need to be told. This book is incredibly inspiring. It's not only a story about a mom and a son, but it's a story about God and us. And I just want to encourage you that God sees you. He sees the challenging days that you have with challenging children. And He's there. He's there for you and He's there for them.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Book Therapy. Today we talked about Different, the story of an outside-the-box kid and the mom who loved him by Sally Clarkson and her son, Nathan Clarkson. Sally has so many resources. Her website is sallyclarkson.com, and she's written several books. She has a podcast. She has an email list. I recommend checking her out because she has this soothing mama voice. It's so compassionate and tender. Nathan is the creative one, so he has a YouTube page and he's made a few movies. His most recent movie is called Bright Sky. There's a teaser trailer on his YouTube page, which is called Clarkson Creations. I'll link these in the show notes, but if you have not read any of Sally Clarkson's books, head to the library, head to Amazon, because she's one that you definitely want to check out. All right, thanks for listening. See you next time.
Let's dive into the book. Today we are talking about my crazy audio and how my computer doesn't work, and my Wi-Fi sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work, and my microphone sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. No comprendo.